Blessings and welcome. This is MMAJAMMIN, and this is a review show and just general podcast. It's not a review show, it's a podcast by myself, Kyle the Mighty Chin, and we're just talking about combat sports and MMA. What's fun, what's coming up, what's past, and that's all. And as usual, I'm going to start out with a tune. This week, I'm still on the vibes, man. Black Lives Matter. We're fighting the struggle out there. So you don't know. From Kabaka Pyramid, give you a thought. You know this is suffocation. The people living in a suffocation. But can't breathe. But can't breathe. When the youths can't write and can't read. Many can't spell, but that them a buyanda. Yeah, just a quick little tip, you know. So Kabaka Pyramid, big up Kabaka Pyramid, is one of them conscious artists that definitely about social responsibility and equal rights, and you don't know about the empowerment of the black man and the black people. So big up Kabaka Pyramid. Right, so moving on into talking about last week. So the last UFC card was Jessica I versus Calvillo. That was the main event, and it was a fight night, but as usual, these fight nights that are not big pay-per-views, they pay off big time and we get fireworks, right? You don't expect much from them necessarily, but definitely fireworks. And there were a couple honorable mentions for sure. Cynthia Calvillo put on a great performance against a much larger opponent. As a matter of fact, Jessica I actually missed weight, and there's a little bit of controversy because they say that she held on to the towel while she was weighing in because her coach actually text messaged Calvillo's manager to say that she's going to miss weight by about 3 pounds. Having said that, you know what I mean, she goes in and she actually misses weight by 0.25 pounds. And she was suffering. She looked horrible. She looked really pathetic if you look at the videos, right? But it turns out that she was holding onto the inside of the towel. Or that's what the controversy is. So, I mean, who knows if that's actually what happened. So, yeah, so Cynthia begs about that, but at the same time, Cynthia put on a wonderful performance. She was able to pressure her with her wrestling, even though Jessica was so much bigger, and came out on top. Marvin Vettori put on a great performance, much anticipated. That fight against Carl Robertson was definitely, you know, both of them are very powerful middleweights and they throw hard shots and they like to strike, but they often end up finishing on the ground because they pressure guys, hurt guys, and then when they go down, they finish them either by ground and pound or submission. So this was a submission for Marvin Vettori. If I remember correctly, it was a rear naked choke. Andre Fili, of course, put on a really good performance, just sticking and moving, lots of striking and just moving and getting his way around the cage. Maria Agapova, man, she was entertaining to watch, man. So she sounds just like JJ. I think she might even come from Poland, and she have that same kind of energy as JJ, except a lot more young and you know, Gladys vibes, you know what I mean? Just very happy. So that was very cool. Then you have Marab out of the Lagoria camp, that's out of Aljamain's camp. And Marab, I think he's Kazakhstani, was, I mean, very Khabib-like in his style, just pressure and just combat sambo kind of pressure. Consistent pressure, consistent wrestling, consistent grappling. Can't get away from him. So he, you know, just pressure the guy the whole fight, won by decision. But the 2 early fights that just got your attention right away and probably knockouts of the night, they got performance of the night bonuses. There was no fight of the night bonus, which was an interesting choice by Dana. But he gave out a lot of performance bonuses. And for performance bonus, for those who don't know, it's 50 grand. So it's not no pian thing, you see me? So Tyson had a wonderful first round knockout. Check the clip. And Julia was under pressure early and just immediately switched it on her opponent, Gina Mazzani, and just pressured her with consistent. She landed a beautiful knee to the body and then just followed up with consistent strikes and pressure and was able to finish it. So that was awesome. And of course, Christian Aguilera also had a wonderful stoppage. First round as well, 59 seconds. So the first three fights were 59 seconds, 32 seconds, and 22 seconds. So it had started out with such an adrenaline pump. So that was awesome. Yeah, so that was that UFC. I was very excited about that. And just quickly run into this UFC coming up this week, because I want to talk about some more things, more Jamaicans doing things in the UFC, and more excited things about Jamaicans coming up. But Curtis Blades versus Alexander Volkov is coming up, and that's an exciting fight. Curtis Blades, a big, strong wrestler, versus Alexander Volkov, a 6'7" striker kickboxer. And it's super exciting, and I really want to talk about this a little bit because, especially for those who like betting and want to bet online, it's, you have Volkov always able to keep distance, land beautiful knee strikes when you get close, beautiful elbows, and then jab, has beautiful kickboxing, really excellent kickboxing, can put together his combinations nicely, his hands are fluid, and really just one of the fighters that you really like to watch because he finishes those fights, right? Performed well in the UFC when he came in, beat up Stefan Struve. He was looking excellent against Derek Lewis until he got comfortable in the last seconds of the fight and decided to slug with Derek. Now, that's not something you want to ever do, is stand up in front of Derek and give him a chance to tee off. So Derek was able to connect, and that's all she wrote. But now we have him fighting against Curtis Blades, who is super, super dangerous, has only really lost to Francis Ngannou. And he's all about that pressure. All he's going to do is pressure you for that takedown. He actually beat Junior Dos Santos, which is a huge, huge victory. He beat Alistair Overeem, which is, an all-time great. And Alistair Overeem is actually Jamaican father. But those two victories alone are excellent, top-notch victories against a former champion and a long-standing Strikeforce, Pride, all kind of thing champion. So Curtis Blades, because of that pressure and that constant threat of that wrestling and of the takedown, is extremely dangerous, and I actually think Curtis takes it. Especially because if you watch Alexander versus Fabricio Verdum, you see that Alexander really he's surprisingly weak takedown defense. I was very, very surprised about how easily Verdum could take him down just using single leg. And Curtis Blades is a hardcore, well-decorated wrestler who's got power and explosivity behind him. Verdum is not a wrestler. Verdum is a jiu-jitsu man, and his takedowns are much different than a wrestler's. Wrestlers are much more forceful, and they can use a lot more, explosive power. The jiu-jitsu takedowns tend to be a little more leverage, a little more finesse, and so on. But it was surprising to me that Alexander could not fight off his takedowns that well. Alexander can take a punch. That's one thing we know for sure. But yeah, I definitely think Volkov gets that. Curtis Blade takes that fight. I think Curtis is actually, or should be, the favorite as well. I think he's a higher rank. Josh Emmett, Shane Burgess. Wicked fight. Shane is on a mad tear, just knocking people out left, right, and center. He's 13-1. He's an excellent striker. He's got wicked pressure. He's all-round fighter, just like Josh Emmett. They're both excellent all-round fighters with great pressure. So it's going to be excellent to see how they match up. I think it's going to be a fire show, and that's probably the fight I'm excited to see the most. Raquel Pennington, Marion Reneau, excellent fight. Interesting tidbit about Marion, she's 40 years old or 41 years old, and but she's excellent fighter. She's very durable and definitely all round, right? Raquel Pennington, Rocky, former contender, great fighter, can slug. I think that's going to be an excellent fight. Belal Muhammad versus Lyman Good. Lyman is a dangerous, dangerous veteran, knocks people cold, and then of course Belal is doing the thing for the last couple of years. Very strong fighter. And interesting tidbit about Belal, his father's store during the riots got looted and completely destroyed. But they have Belal was very upset when it just happened, and he put out a tweet about hospitalizing looters and stuff like that. But his father's attitude towards it was so, positive and laid back, and just really had to do. He really understands what's going on in terms of the struggle, and kind of writes it off as a part of the revolution. You know what I mean? And of course he's insured, sorry. So, he's not too worried about it. Jim Miller, Roosevelt Roberts. Roosevelt is a tall ass, 6'2", 155 pounder. So he's a lightweight at 6'2", fighting against Jim Miller, who is a regular size lightweight. And it's going to be an excellent fight. Jim Miller is a tested veteran, excellent wrestler, excellent striker, wicked pressure. And then you have Roosevelt Roberts, who is a very high-paced fighter, not afraid of the ground game at all, has long limbs, good submission game, but is also on a tear. He's been finishing the last 6 fights, finished, right? Nothing going to decision. So it's going to be an exciting fight right there. I think Roosevelt takes that one just because he's got that, that. But they're putting him up against, and this is one of those guys that if he beats Jim Miller, he's gonna be fast tracked, because this is that fight. Like, you get a young upcomer who is on a tear, he's doing excellent, and then you put him against a tested veteran who that, all right, if you beat this guy, we're giving you a top 15 fighter next, or a top 10 fighter next. Matter of fact, Jim Miller might be in the top 15. Should be. Clay Guida, Bobby Green, 2 veterans. That's going to be an exciting fight. Clay Guida is always a very interesting guy to watch. If you haven't seen Clay Guida, his hair is always down in his face. Always down in his face. Most guys with long hair, they'll put it up, or they braid it. Nah, this dude, and Clay just has a very, I guess you could say, not Khabibish. He's very much like Rafael dos Santos. Rafael dos Anjos in his pressure. Like, he strikes, of course, but he's always looking to take you down, always looking to pressure you on the ground, and then you have to work to get up and so on. Tisha Torres, Brianna Van Buren. It's going to be an interesting fight. Tisha is that karate fighter. And we're going to talk about that stuff later, but I think I'm not going to say anything about that one. The only other honorable mention I'll bring up is Roxanne Modafferi. Good old veteran Roxanne Modafferi against Lauren Murphy. I hope Roxanne takes it. You got to love Roxanne, man. The most unassuming fighter you'll ever see. Like, this woman looks like a librarian, like the most nerdy librarian you can imagine. And her personality, everything about her personality is the opposite of what you'd expect a fighter to be. But she's extremely lovable, extremely likable. So that's a super interesting fight. I'm so excited about how June is going to end out. And this is my birthday month, so I'm very, big up UFC because you're popping the thing, yo. Right, so I'm super excited about how June is ending out and how UFC is ending out June on the 27th with an exciting card, yo. I tell you, say, this bad. Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker. Mike Perry versus Mickey Gall. No. Oh, man. So here's the thing. So Dustin Poirier, former lightweight champion, excellent boxer, excellent, even jiu-jitsu game, all-around fighter, just a really proper champ material. And he's fighting against a real strong upcomer in Dan Hooker, who's been on a tear. He's from Israel Adesanya's camp in New Zealand, and that whole camp, that's the same camp as Volkanovski, who is now the champion at featherweight, I think. Let me check that real quick. Now you see, this is why you need like the assistant in the car over there. Hey, Google that for me. And him just Google up a thing and tell you what go on. We have champions coming out of that gym. We have everybody on a tier, and it's exciting to see what Hooker is gonna do, because Hooker be knocking people out. So now coming against Dustin Poirier, Hooker is a taller guy, more reach, but Poirier has excellent movement. He can fight off both stances, tends to use that switch and fight off of both stances in his fights. And then I really gotta give that one to Dustin Poirier. I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Hooker came through, but I give that one to Dustin Poirier. Welterweight co-main event, Mike Perry versus Mickey Gall. Man, so you have Mickey Gall, a tall, lanky, jiu-jitsu player. Or jiu-jitsu is his main strength. Obviously, at this level, everybody's all round, and Mickey Gall can strike. He does all right, but he's gonna want to take Mike Perry down. He's gonna want to get him in a submission, which is something that Mike Perry is susceptible to, as we saw with Cowboy. But Mike Perry is one of them really, really exciting guys. Reminds you of Justin Gagey in that he just throw strikes. He's gonna bite down on a mouthpiece, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to try and knock a man out, right? And that's always exciting to see. And of course, he's a character to follow just in the lead up to the fights and so on. Breaking news. So Mike Perry just posted this on his Instagram today. Couple of days out from the fight. It's fight week. This is crazy. Ian Heinisch versus Brendan Allen. Heinisch just fought like a couple weeks ago and knocked out a man a couple weeks ago. So I'm glad to see he's back in. I guess he's probably a replacement. But excellent fight. Gian Villante, we haven't seen Gian in a while, and he's fighting Maurice Green. Interesting guy, Maurice Green. Definitely dealing with alcoholism and so on. We saw him on The Ultimate Fighter. We saw that he has a lot of talent, but he's got a lot of demons to battle. So we'll see what happens there. I do think Gian takes it. I think Gian is fighting out of Matt Serra's camp, and which is the same camp as Aljamain. So great jiu-jitsu, great all-round fighter. Aspen Ladd, Sarah McMahon, that's going to be a big fight. Sarah McMahon, the old veteran Aspen Ladd coming up, and she's really a big promising fighter, very promising fighter for the UFC, and I know they want to push her. Luis Pena out of American Kickboxing Academy, which is Khabib's camp, Daniel Cormier's camp, excellent fighter, another product of The Ultimate Fighter. So that's going to be a really, really exciting card to see. June 27th. I'll probably break that down some more next week, but I'm just so excited when they announce that card, and I'm super, super excited about Curtis Blades, Alexander Volkov, especially because they really start the card with a lot of, very, very cool matchups. Right, so that's it for, coming up with the UFCs. But now, going into another fight announcement that came out is Uriah Hall versus Yoel Romero. Now this is super exciting because you have Yoel Romero, who is the beast, the boogeyman everybody's scared of, who is now ranked number 4, former contender, ranked number 4, and after coming off that last fight against Israel, where he was, so from a couple times he's been a contender. He was a contender against Israel. He was contender against Robert Whittaker twice, and a lot will argue that he beat Robert Whittaker in one of those fights, if not both of those fights. I see where they would give it to Whittaker, so I don't mind. But definitely champion material, definitely top notch, former gold medalist in wrestling, freestyle wrestling, and just super deadly, super explosive, and just beating a slew of top notch guys. So he deserves all the accolades he gets, all the respects he gets, and the reputation that seems to precede him all the time. And he's fighting against Uriah Hall, who is Jamaican born in Spanish Town, left here about 9 years old, and grew up in New York. Doesn't really pay much attention to us Jamaicans, he don't really rep Jamaica more than so, but it's alright. We love him, we rep him, because he's a yardie, and he's up there in the UFC. Got a lot of attention with his run through the Ultimate Fighter. That's where I discovered him, because I'm a hardcore Ultimate Fighter fan, and he really blew through that season. There was lots of high expectations for him. One of the deadliest knockouts, the worst knockouts anybody's ever seen in the cage, was his spinning wheel kick in the house, when they were fighting in the house, not in the actual house, but during that competition. And then he got to the finals against Kelvin Gastelum, and spazzed out. He did not fight up to his expectation. However, we do see that Kelvin Gastelum is a top-notch fighter. He's also a former contender, and one of the greatest fights ever was him versus Israel Adesanya. But so now Uriah has, consistently we've wanted to see him do great things, and the UFC has wanted to see him do great things. He's ranked number 15 right now, and it's such a huge step up in competition. And that's a huge opportunity for Uriah, because if he gets through this, I know they might fast track him to maybe even one more fight from the championship, from the belt. So this is a very exciting opportunity for Uriah, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. So let's talk about this fight a little bit. Let's break it down a little bit. And you guys let me know what you think in the comments, because it's such an interesting situation. So you have Uriah, who has shown to have real problems, psychological problems in the cage. It seems like he performs great one time, and then another time he's not there. But I that's what a lot of people say. I attribute it more to his style. I don't think Uriah has a style that can consistently win at a high level. And I say that because his type of karate-based striking, he's always waiting for that opportunity, and he needs space. So he does great once you give him enough space to throw, his kind of deceptive strikes, his spins, and so on. The other thing is that, so he doesn't employ a lot of leg kicks. He's like I said, he's real karate-based. And when I say karate-based, I don't mean Kyokushin, because Kyokushin is very different. But he doesn't employ a lot of leg kicks. He'll do the teeps. He's looking for that spinning back kick. He's looking for that spinning wheel kick, hook kick. His punches, he's a counter striker, which is very karate-esque. He's a counter striker, so he's waiting for you to come in, and then he'll catch you with that shot, right? Which can cause a problem. It can also cause a lull in the fight. So you can also expect that this fight it has a potential to also be very boring, because as we've seen with Yoel, he's a waiter. He's also a waiter. if you're not consistently pressuring Yoel, it's not going to be a fight of the night. What Yoel does is he waits, he lulls you, and you'll see him do it. He'll stand, and he'll paw out, and and then he'll explode, and his explosion is so massive that he can't even control his footwork. You'll notice when he explodes, it's like it's literally like a rocket, and then he's just throwing those strikes and then trying to catch back his footwork. But more often than not, that explosivity works out for him. Of course, he has that wrestling, but it's interesting that Yoel doesn't really use the wrestling that much. Like, you don't see him doing like Khabib and wrestling guys and holding them down. What he'll do is he'll take you down, he'll make you worry about the takedown, and that opens up his strikes, right? Because for those who don't know, if you're a boxer, you can't do nothing against a wrestler, right? Because all he's gonna do is get under there, grab your legs, and unless you have wrestling yourself, a pure boxer is not gonna do much because you're always worried about that takedown. And you'll find that a wrestler can knock out a boxer because of that fact. So what happens is he can fake for the takedown, come up with the overhand right, or he comes with the overhand right and goes straight into the takedown, and it's so fast you don't know what's happening before you're on the ground. So clearly that's on a general basis, but yeah, you know what I mean. And it's something that we've seen time and time again in the cage. So you have Uriah, who now, in his fight against Paula Acosta, his jab was a new adjustment that he had made to his game, and it was excellent. It was something that was really doing work. You know what I mean? It was proper, it was crisp, it was sharp, and it was busy until Paula's pressure got to him. And that's what happens with, like, that's what makes Paula such an excellent fighter and such an exciting fighter to watch. And that's kind of the difference between kickboxing and karate as well. And that's what you'll find that's happening. Which will bring us to another segment that we will have, where we break down the most effective styles for MMA and for combat against trained professionals. So Paula was able to hit the body a lot. Paula was able to really slow him down and really pressure him. So even he wasn't worried about the counter strikes. He was there to keep the pace up and keep it busy, which is what you kind of have to do with Uriah. You don't give him a break. You keep it busy. That's what you do with Yoel as well. And that's the only way Uriah is going to beat Yoel. He's going to have to keep that jab popping, but he's also going to have to keep his defense a lot tighter, right? And what you'll find is that karate fighters tend to keep their hands low so that they can be quicker and with their movement and so on. But of course that leaves that gap. So we're worried. So I'm worried to see if Uriah is going to be able to keep that pressure on Yoel, make him think about enough things to distract him and get that shot, right? He can outpoint Yoel. He absolutely can outpoint Yoel and go to a decision. He can, right? So it's all about his movement, because Yoel is not going to have consistently great movement. He's not going to... Yoel doesn't pressure you in a two-step kind of way. He pressures you with these slow forward steps, very slow, and then bam, he rushes. So it's going to be super interesting. Clearly Yoel is the betting favorite. He is number 4. Uriah is number 15. But we're praying that Uriah finds these keys to victory, which I think is going to be movement and consistent pressure. And when I say pressure, I don't mean standing in front of Yoel, but touch and move, and keep it going. We've seen that Yoel is almost impossible to knock out. We saw Robert kick him in the head. We saw Paulo Costa kick him in the head. And he just won't go down. So it's going to be extremely difficult to try to knock this man out. But he can totally point him and move. Israel Adesanya beat him with leg kicks. That's how he got his decision. Leg kicks. That was a horrible fight. It was very, very boring. But Yoel also, when you thought Yoel would have done everything he could possibly do to come forward and get the win against the champion at his age, which is like over 40, you thought he would have done that. He didn't do it. He was waiting. and he's gonna do that again against Uriah. The exciting fights that you see Yoel in are the ones where he knocks guys out with that explosion, or like Paulo Acosta, who just pressures him. But I don't think Uriah should pressure him in the same way Paulo Acosta pressured him. Uriah will have to go for that forward, that side kick to the knee. That was effective when Robert used it. Side kick to the knee. Touch him with the side kicks, touch him with the jab. Stay out. When he comes in, be prepared to work on the inside, right? And I think then Uriah can do a thing, right? So we'll see. We're praying. You don't know Uriah. All of your Jamaican people them have your back, and we want you to win. And hopefully you'll finally shout out Jamaica. You see me? Big up yourself. So we did our poll. I did a poll on my Instagram about who y'all got, is what I said in the poll. I just said who y'all got. And of course it was Yoel Romero versus Hall. 87% went with Hall, 13 went with Yoel. Cause you don't know, Jamaicans go hard for our people. So we're behind you, Uriah. Big up yourself. Alright, and that takes us to the last segment, which I'm only going to spend about 5 minutes on, which is a very controversial thing. It's always controversial when we talk about the best styles for mixed martial arts and for combat fighting, combat competition, and even real world application. So, Jamaica is a karate country, and it's super interesting that Jamaica is a karate country because all of our fascination with martial arts actually comes from Kung Fu. It comes from Chinese martial arts. All of the people that Jamaicans grew up building this fascination, especially my generation and before my generation, building this fascination for martial arts came from Kung Fu, not karate. So, Bruce Lee, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, all Kung Fu, all Chinese martial arts. But Jamaicans call everything karate. And of course, karate was actually the first to come here as a martial arts. And it was very popular. I was even, on Enter the Dojo as a child. I did karate, I did Seido karate. And karate is very popular. We actually have karate and taekwondo are actually the most popular here. My background is Kung Fu and Chinese kickboxing. Sanshou, Sanda. But karate is very popular here as well as boxing. Karate, we even have a combined martial arts team. Big up to the combined martial arts team, who are the winningest team ever. They consistently compete at a very high level all across the world, and they don't lose, which is incredible. So big up to them. Now, that being said, the way they compete and the way they train is what I think makes karate not the most effective for MMA. Okay? So, MMA started, UFC started, really the original origins of UFC was from one guy saying, I bet my style can beat your style. Right? And we all played Street Fighter, we all played all these games where everybody had their different styles coming in, and it's something that fascinated people from that time, and we've always been fascinated by that conversation, that debate. And I'm very willing to have somebody come on the podcast with me and talk about this. And of course, you can leave your comments and what you think. If you start cause bad enough for me, may I block you? May I tell you that from now? But anyway, for karate, so look at the way they train, and I'm gonna separate Kyokushin. We'll talk about Kyokushin after, but when you talk about the other styles of karate, you'll find that training punches, doing this kind of thing. This is something that is still trained, and this is a traditional martial art. It's thousands of years old, and there's certain aspects that have not evolved. For the sake of tradition and so on, they keep it. Now, first I start with the fact that karate does not have any kind of ground fighting involved other than to strike once you're on the so there's a ground and pound, but other than that, there's no grappling involved, which immediately makes it it takes away more than half of the effectiveness of it in MMA. And I'll say that because it's been proven that if a pure grappler and a pure wrestler go in a fight, the grapplers win 80% of the time, maybe even 90% of the time. And this has been proven. There are too many videos out there for us to even have an argument about that. Alright? Especially when you go back to the early UFCs and so on. That's why a small little man like Royce Gracie, who revolutionized this whole thing. The Gracies already proved this. And Royce Gracie, a small little man, was beating 300, 400 pound man with a very no rules barred kind of fight. You could even strike to the balls at the time. So, coming back to karate. So as a striking art, you'll find that because of the way they train, that already leaves you open for lots of trouble. And we've seen that in kickboxing matchups. So you see, when you see karate versus Muay Thai, when you see kickboxing versus karate. And this is a problem because the way you train is the way you'll compete. So the karate fighters who've made that adjustment and become great kickboxers are the ones who made that adjustment. They've added the boxing aspect to their karate, right? Because you'll find that their boxing is weak because of the way that they tend to train. Also, it's the way they compete. When you see karate fighters compete, they don't do leg kicks, first of all, for point competition. And you stop after each strike. So take a look at this video, for instance. And I literally just chose a random video. And it shows exactly what I'm talking about. Where you strike quickly and you stop, right? And it's really about, the guy threw a strike and then looked around to the judges. Did I hit him? Did I hit him? And it's funny because if you enter into a fight like that, thinking that one strike is always going to be all you need, you will always get knocked out. Like, there are times when you land that one strike and it will work. And karate fighters will tell you about their chi and all this. But if you practice taking time to build your chi before a fight, what happens when you don't have time? What happens when you're under pressure? Right? It's the same thing with breaking boards. And there's arguments for why breaking boards absolutely means nothing. It means that you have the ability to focus your energy and your strength and your chi in one place. However, how does that translate to a fight? You don't have time to focus up all that. Hopefully you don't. If you're fighting somebody who have sense, they're going to rush you. Or they're going to not give you space and pressure. And that's how you beat karate fighters, especially the point fighters. You take away their space and you give them pressure. And I'll show you a couple of examples here in kickboxing. So like in Glory Kickboxing, you have guys like Raymond Daniels, who, because of the effective parts of karate, of point fighting, which is speed, deception, and then of course the counter striking. Those are their strengths. You give them space and they can, do all kinds of things. Also, their ability to move in and out very quickly. The problem is, like I said, the way they compete, they're used to stopping. You make a great strike and you stop. So what happens when you look at a man like Raymond Daniels, in his fight against Nicky Holston, or even his fight against Joseph Valentini, you see how they're just walked down. The fence is up, you walk them down, and they also don't practice a lot of leg kicks. So the fence is up, walking down, you kick away, you take their legs, you take their body, and the karate fighters slow down. You take a fighter's legs and his body, he's not going to be moving as much. And then he's gassed because all of his game is dependent on constant movement, in and out movement, right? And then you start to take, and of course if you're taking his legs and he can't be jumping up and down, and you take away that explosion from him now, right? And then you're able to knock them out. And this is what happens. And I rate Raymond Daniels as one as the best. Same thing happened to MVP, who also gets a lot of knockouts, fantastic knockouts from guys who don't have that kind of educated striking, right? So they don't have the educated defense and they don't have the educated striking. So what you see happening is they're trying to do the same thing these fighters are doing, but they're not as good. You can also pressure these guys for takedowns, right? But you have to do it in the right way. You have to distract them with the strikes and then go for the takedowns, or else you're gonna end up in the same boat, running into a knee and so on. And we see MVP doing it. We see Raymond Daniels doing it. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is the same thing. The other thing you'll notice about those three fighters is that they're extremely boring fighters if you don't have somebody pressuring them. When guys decide not to pressure them and try to play the same game, it's so boring. Stephen Wonderboy against Tyron Woodley, they're both waiters. They both wait in order to effect their game plan. Super boring fights, right? But the way to pressure these guys is you have to have a very educated defense, right? And you have to know your angles and so on. And you have to be constantly threatening or constantly striking, right? So it's the same way you see Paul Acosta versus the Uriah Hall the first time. Once you start to pressure these guys, take them down, fatigue the legs, fatigue the arms by wrestling them, clinching them, kicking the legs, kicking the body, taking them down, making them work. And then, like I said, if you're a karate fighter, to get to the top, a lot of these guys are able to get to the top by having just extremely good takedown defense and being super deceptive, super precise, having great counter striking, and being super explosive. That's how they get there, but they can't maintain it because then they meet other guys who are super excellent at what they do too, but also have wrestling, also have jiu-jitsu games, right? So you have to add those elements to your game, but the karate by itself will never be enough. Sorry, let me just say, none of them by itself will ever be enough at the top levels. So let me just discount that there. But I do think the karate game has too many holes because of how they compete and how they train, right? And that's coming from me, who used to do karate at one point, and from the evidence that I've seen, in the fights and so on. So it's wonderful that they're deceptive. It's wonderful that they're fast. It's wonderful that they have great counter striking, but there are ways around those things, and the top fighters have found them, even if they're not going to take them down to the ground. So Kyokushin, I separated Kyokushin from the start because Kyokushin has wonderful combinations. So it's fluid striking with combinations. So you'll find that the point karate, once they throw 2 or 3 strikes, their footwork is off. They're not in a good position to re-establish proper striking, proper offense and defense. And that's what happens. So they go brrr, and then they're off foot. And then they have to get back before they can re-establish their legs. Right? So that's why when you can stay on top of them, boom, 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 see the strikes, block them, and then just be ready again in your striking stance to throw strikes. This is what happens, and that's what Joseph Valentini did with Raymond Daniels. That's what Nicky Holskin did with Raymond Daniels. When you see MVP versus Douglas Lima, that's what Douglas Lima did, right? Douglas just went for that leg, kicked out the leg, took the head. You know what I mean? Right. So Kyokushin is different though, because Kyokushin is much closer to kickboxing in that it's fluid. Their training is hard body training. The biggest problem with Kyokushin is that they only punch to the body. So they have beautiful fluid combinations to the body that go into head kicks and leg kicks. They also kick to the legs. They have very, very fast spin kicks. They have, very, very strong kicks, and they train hard body as well. But like I said, the problem is that they don't train punching to the head. So they also don't train defense to the head. Right? So when you saw Andy Hugh fighting against the Muay Thai fighter, which is a fight they set up, and they man, it was so messed up. They leaned the rules towards the karate because they said no punching to the face allowed. And I hate this when they do Muay Thai versus karate and they say no punching to the face allowed. It's so unfair. And they obviously take out the elbows already. So you're taking away the elbows, you're taking away the punches. And the Muay Thai fighters still tend to do very well because they have such excellent leg kicks and defense and range control. But if you take away the clinch and you take away all of these things, you're just fighting a karate fight. And in the streets, what's most effective is the ability to protect your head and the ability to strike their head, right? That's what you need. So you see now in that fight with Andy Hoog, he like them in a exchange and them get punched me in the head. Oh, and them stop and them punch me in the face, man. Dude, are you training to fight? Or are you training to what are you doing? You can kick me in my head, but I can't punch you in the head. Makes no sense. And that's my problem with Kyokushin. But we have seen how Andy Hugh then went on to become a great kickboxing champion because he adjusted and added that boxing to his game. And of course, it was the rule. It's all about your rules. So those were the rules, and he went with that. The same thing with Bas Rutten, with Pancrase and so on. You have many other karate champions who went from Kyokushin and became very, very effective kickboxers. So I do give a lot of ratings to the Kyokushin karate. However, by itself, if you're not learning how to defend your head, and you're practicing point fighting, it's gonna work against you if you go into real kickboxing or real MMA, because it's teaching you bad habits, right? Just like this, it's always stopping after you think you landed a great strike is a really bad thing, and I've seen it happen in sparring. It does happen when I spar against karate fighters. They kick and they stop, or strike and they stop, or they expect you to stop, or they just can't handle the pressure, right? Especially, and they also don't defend their head very well. And what you'll find a lot with karate fighters is that they punch like this, or they strike, they run in and they strike, and their head is in the air. MVP, you see him do it, but he's so fast that he has gotten away with them, and because he's so tall. But his head is way up in the air when he strikes, as opposed to having the head defended while you're striking. So put out in the comments what you guys think. I know it's going to be controversial, and I'm excited to see what y'all think. There's the mass of striking arts for MMA in Jamaica comes from karate. So I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash for this, but don't you worry, I'm going to cover Taekwondo, I'm going to cover Kung Fu, I'm going to cover boxing, I'm going to cover Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, all of them. And like I said, there are great elements to these arts if you can adjust and add other things to your game. But by itself, stand alone, not great. So thank you very much for tuning in. This was MMA Jamming with the mighty Kyle Chin. This is episode 2, and I'm happy for all the support I've gotten so far. Thank you. Keep on watching, keep on supporting, and just remember, be mighty. Big up on yourself. Peace.